good boss to have. Go
ahead.
So he made you think.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Here for you. Missed it.
Good evening. I call the October 21st, 2025 meeting of Sarpy County Commission to order at 7 p.m. Ms. Timby, could you please call the roll?
Ackley,
Here.
Brannock,
Here.
Mattia,
Here.
Van Wielden,
Here.
Whitfield,
Here.
Huddleston,
Here.
Dembinski, Weiss,
Here.
Kierlieber, here, Huck.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I invite you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting subject to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A current copy of the law is located on the north wall of this room. Please feel free to review the law before making any comments. An introduction of planning staff and legal counsel. Robert Larocco, Planning Director, Kelly Jeck, Planning Coordinator, Don Simon, Chief Building Official, Julie Ogden, JEO Consultant for the County, Nicole Spitzenberger, Deputy County Attorney, Steve Preston, Deputy County Attorney, Lisa Timby, Permit Technician, Zach Hergengrader, Public Works, and Jose Garcia, Technology Services. This time is designated for individuals to address the Commission on topics not otherwise listed on the agenda. Ms. Timby, has anybody signed up to speak?
They have not.
Okay. The first order of business is to approve or edit the minutes from the prior meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 16th, 2025.
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
Was that you, Caleb?
Yep.
Okay. Please vote. Six yeas, 3 abstained, Whitfield, Weiss, Kierlieber, 1 absent, Dembinski. Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Each agenda item will adhere to the following format as detailed in the Sarpy County Planning Commission bylaws. The planning staff will introduce and briefly explain the agenda item. The applicant or the applicant's representative will be given 5 minutes to provide information about the project to the Commission. After the applicant's presentation, I'll open the floor to public comment. Please keep your comments relevant to the agenda item, and to keep the meeting moving, please avoid repeating what others have said. Once all parties that wish to speak have done so, I'll close the public comment portion of the agenda item. The applicant or the applicant's representative can respond to any questions or concerns raised and rebut any comments. Next, I'll close the public hearing and members of the Planning Commission will discuss the agenda item. During this discussion, the commissioners may ask questions of anyone involved in the project. There is no requirement for rebuttal from others. There is also no time limit for this discussion. Okay, the first item on the regular agenda is a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use from mixed use to medium to high density residential on a parcel legally described as northeast quarter section of 22 T14 north or 11 east of the 6th post meridian, Sarpy County, Nebraska, except that portion conveyed to the United States of America in Deed Book 149 at page 1607, and except that portion conveyed to Papio, Missouri River Natural Resources District in instruction number 90-14067, and except that portion conveyed to Boyer Young Equities 5 LLC in instruction number 2004-27640, and accept that portion taken or used for roads generally located southwest of 156th Street and Giles Road. Applicant is Hubble Development Services and Sarpy County Planning Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With your permission, I'd like to present on both items 1 and 2 simultaneously. You'll have to vote on each of those items separately, but the two items go together. So, take a look at your screens here. You'll see approximately 20.74 acres of property currently zoned Ag District. As noted, located southwest of 156th and Giles Road. Property to the south and to the east is all part of the Chalco Hills Recreation Area, Wearspan Lake. And you'll see property is generally flat, grass covered, level, and undeveloped. There is on the northeast corner of the site, there is an existing cell tower right there, which is included as a part of this request and planned development, but there are no substantive changes that are occurring as a part of that request. So this evening, we're presenting something that I have a feeling some of you probably aren't too familiar with. So I'm going to take a moment to review and familiarize you with the concept of the planned development overlay. This is very common in other jurisdictions. The city of Omaha does these regularly, pretty much with every one of their agendas. But to our knowledge, we haven't done one here in Sarpy County in this jurisdiction. So while it's something that you might all be familiar with, you may not have had direct experience with the consideration and action on one of these. They're typical of infill development, especially multifamily residential development. They're intended to provide flexibility in design standards. So if you were to take a look at the text of the zoning code, it would say that you can waive or make exceptions for certain zoning regulations. For example, like setbacks, off-street parking number, density, anything that's really located in the zoning ordinance. You can make an exception for that through the plan development. And Sarpy County's code specifies that you can do that as long as the impacts of that are being mitigated with increases in design standards in other places throughout the development. So
I'm sorry, could you pull the mic in front of you?
you're not, okay.
Thank you.
Is that a little better?
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that. So the intent here with the plan development, as I noted, is flexibility. So these exceptions to this to these zoning regulators are approved through the plans that you have seen or review, or we're going to review with you here today. So because this is technically a rezone, you can't create conditions of approval. Generally, you don't do that with a rezoning, but the plans that you approve, you're approving a specific set of plans that are going to have specific zoning regulators that we've identified, and we'll go through those together. So with that, let's also take a look here at the future land use map for the property. As I noted before, as Mr. Chair had noted before, there is a comprehensive plan amendment that's associated with this request. That comprehensive plan amendment is to change the future land use designation of this site from mixed use, as it is right now, to medium and high density residential. The map would point out that it's medium and high density residential on the properties to the north of this intersection. So let's get into this here. What we've got in front of you this evening is a preliminary plat for the creation of 4 lots. 3 of those would be for the multifamily residential development that we're going to go through. One of them is for the cell tower that's already existing. Along with that preliminary plat, they're also seeking a rezoning from AG, Agricultural Farming District, to RG 35, General Residential, within a planned development or PD overlay. Here we go. So here's a layout of the site. As I know, lot 4 is the location of the cell tower lot, and we've got 3 lots that are developed for residential purposes. And we'll get into the planned development here. So, well, I should note here, this is lot 3, and lot 3 does not and is not proposed to have frontage along a public street right of way. Subdivision regulations note that this is acceptable when done as a part of a planned development, as part of a unified kind of development plan that'll make sure or ensure that access is being provided. In this instance, you can see that the preliminary plat provides an access easement from lot 3 through lot 1 to Giles Road. But primary access, there's an entrance here, but they would also be able to access 159th Street from to the west. So let's take a look at this plan development. What we have here, total of 299 multifamily residential units located in a total of 19 structures. They range from triplexes, which you see here. That's going to be 3 individual units per structure, ranging up to 45 unit apartment buildings located along Giles Road on the north. And then there's one interior to the site, kind of to the, I guess, eastern edge of the site. We've got 7 plexes as well. And those are going to be primarily here, as well as 9 plexes and 11 plexes throughout the site as well. We've got, I should also note that these 3 plexes each have a 2-stall garage. So there's 24 attached garage stalls for these. There is an additional 47 detached garage stalls located in these garage structures on the interior of the site. And we've got a clubhouse here, swimming pool, and playground here. Property is being accessed from this point here on Giles Road, which we would anticipate would be, they're doing a right turn lane here, which you can also see on the preliminary plat. And this is anticipated to be a right in, right out intersection here. So proper drivers would likely not be allowed to go left onto Giles from this location. Full access would be taken from here at 159th Street, which we believe will meet warrants for traffic signal, full turn traffic signal, some point in the future. I'd like to take a second, or let me give you a moment to take a look at the building elevations. One of the things that we've noted is that prior to going forward to the county board, we would ask for a full color building elevations to kind of give you a little bit better sense of the stone and siding combination, how that's going to look. There are some examples of this particular development firm, some of the work that they're doing. Most notably, if you're aware of the Mama's Pizza, 96th Street, there's a current apartment building that's going up behind that. That'll give you a very good sense of the architectural style, colors, and design of of this development firm. So let's go real quickly, go back to the future land use plan. So The mixed-use land designation requires that the property would be rezoned to mixed-use district. And when you look at the mixed-use district, there's actually, the code specifies that they would need to have two distinct use types. So for example, they could do a multifamily residential development, but they would also need to include some other type of land use, in this case probably commercial, on that property in order for that to fit the mixed-use land use designation and zoning. In this instance, staff has looked at this and said, this might not be the right location for a commercial development. And the applicant has noted that they don't want to do commercial. That's not what they do. That's not what they develop. And when you look at the Meridian Marketplace development that we're anticipating breaking ground fairly soon to the west, this is no longer really the appropriate location for a mixed-use development. It doesn't really have the size that would support that kind of density of development either. So we believe that the comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from mixed use to medium to high density residential would be appropriate for this site. So we'll go through some of the exceptions and waivers for the property. I went through the one for lot frontage already. And we'll go through the plan development. There are two specific exceptions to zoning regulations that they're requesting as a part of this. The first would be a decrease in the area per unit from 3,500 square feet to 3,000 square feet. This request would allow the site to be developed at a density that would be permitted if this was strictly a townhome development, right? So in our zoning ordinance, a minimum 3,000 square feet per unit is required to develop townhomes, right? So if this developer wanted to entirely develop this property with townhomes, they would be able to put in the same number of units that they are requesting as a part of this request. So we found that to be an appropriate request for an exception. In doing so, it allows them to provide a little additional green space. I call your attention specifically to the areas adjacent to the single family residential and the areas over here that are adjacent to the NRD property. They've kind of set back buildings a little bit further, provided a little bit additional green space. We've got this nice green area between these nineplexes here as well. So in doing that, they can provide a little bit additional green space, a little bit additional design of the buildings and layout, a little more separation while still retaining the density. The second exception that they're asking for is actually a decrease in the permissible impervious surface from 65% to 70%. And the rationale for that would be that you're looking at pavement and roof line under a development like this, we wanted to ensure that the adequate parking and circulation is being provided. In this instance, I forgot to write it down. But they are providing an excess of parking of approximately, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, I think it's like 70 additional stalls beyond what would be typically required for this number of units in this type of development. So, in this suburban atmosphere or neighborhood, people are reliant on single vehicle transportation in order to get around. We need to ensure that adequate parking is being provided for such a use. We believe that they are providing substantial or adequate parking for the use. But in order to do so, they need to have additional pavement that would be able to accommodate those vehicles. So we find that the exception request to allow the increase in impervious surface is acceptable as well. A couple of other DRT or development review team comments that are worth pointing out. The first is that we've requested that they provide a trail width sidewalk. You take a look at this road here. We would request that sidewalk be provided or crossing be provided here. And then that trail width sidewalk be provided along this entryway into the complex with a crossing and sidewalk provided here along the clubhouse and then extending east to the end of the property. with the intent or hope that they would coordinate with the NRD and be able to, in the future, provide some kind of sidewalk connection from the neighborhood onto the NRD property, so that there could be some utility and an added amenity there, access to that site. Second, we are requesting or requiring that they revise the landscaping plan prior to forwarding this request to county board. Specifically, there are requirements for the provision of a buffer yard along the areas that are adjacent to lower intensity use. So with the single family residential uses that are located here, we need to be very aware of how this area is being, or the impacts of this apartment complex are being mitigated to the neighborhood to the south and the west. And so we'll work with the applicant on the provision of a kind of a more robust landscaping plan. We'll be taking a look at berming, fencing, additional vegetation screening. We can do a lot with the different types of species and what kind of berming would be required or feasible in this area. So we'll be looking for that. As I noted earlier, the full color renderings, so we can get a better sense of the design that are being proposed here. And then finally, they'll need to coordinate with the Millard Fire District, the Papillion Fire Department, the Omaha Fire Department on the provision of dual keyed Knox boxes, which are utilized to allow the fire department to access the site and do whatever they need to do to take care of an emergency situation. It's important that they be keyed to both districts because at some point in time, this could move over to a district, or it depends on who is responding to a fire in that situation at this particular location. So we wanted to make sure that health and safety was being addressed. So with that, staff recommends approval of the comprehensive plan amendment from mixed use to medium to high density residential. Approval of the rezoning from AG district to RG 35 PD district, and approval of the preliminary plat for lots 1 to 4 of the Riva at Chelco, along with the waiver of lot frontage to lot 3, subject to the 7 conditions noted in the recommendation report. And with that, staff is available for any questions at this time.
I was curious as to who did the traffic study for this project.
All the looks I've done at the traffic study, I didn't look at who did it.
Oh, okay. And then also within the recommendation, it says that the applicant should provide all improvements identified in the final traffic study.
That's correct, yes.
Is someone going to tell us what those improvements are?
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies for not noting that earlier. It's the right turn lane. The traffic study recommended a right turn lane at 159th. And this right turn lane accessing what they call access 1. Those are the 2 that were identified based on the traffic counts.
This is going to get a little technical, but in the traffic study, did it identify how it changes the level of service on Giles Road? They usually use like level A, B, C, D.
It does identify, it doesn't actually change the level of service.
Oh, okay.
The apartment complex doesn't change the level of service. The traffic study that was submitted actually anticipates a higher unit count on the site than what the applicant is proposing. So if anything, those numbers would be, they would go down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned with that same traffic comment, anticipating a signal on 159th and Giles. Was that discussed? I mean, this area with this additional apartment complex looks almost built out at that intersection, save the commercial property to the north?
Yeah, yes, the contemplation of a traffic signal at 159th and Giles is absolutely, it was a key part of the discussion for the development of this. We know that the traffic signal will go in there eventually, but based on the traffic impact study that was submitted, this particular development does not trigger the warrants for such a traffic signal. We anticipate at some point in the future, though, yes, the warrants will be met for that. In that instance, when that occurs, this development would be requested or required to contribute to the costs and installation for that traffic signal at that location at the time. That would be covered as a part of the subdivision agreement.
I might have missed that, but when was that done? What was the year?
What's that?
The traffic study, when was it done?
2022? I think it was 22. Or that was the most recent numbers that they utilized was from 22.
Traffic study was done this year.
Yes.
They used numbers from prior years.
Kind of following up, can we find out who did the original? And then also, was it reviewed by the county's engineering firm or Mr. Wilson and his folks? Real
Yes,
quick.
I won't speak for Olson, but yes, the Sarpy County Public Works Department or county engineer did review the traffic impact study, as did our coordinating engineer here in the planning department. I will get you the name of the firm that did the impact study.
I have one more question, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but as you were going into the two variances they were requesting, you were talking about, I thought I heard a reduction in green space, and you kind of, and I'm not sure I heard it
Maybe I
right, but you kind of had your cursor over by the townhomes that were near the single-family dwellings that are existing, and I just want to make sure.
Maybe I
Yeah,
misspoke,
what's the
but no, I
green-
didn't mean a reduction in green space. It would actually allow, with this configuration and being able to put these apartment units into larger buildings, it allows for additional green space that wouldn't typically be there if it was just a townhome development.
When we get into this, since it's a RG 35 or whatever, do the setbacks follow RG 35, or
Yes.
can they be amended per the PD as well?
No, they are not being amended per the PD. All setbacks and building heights requirements for the RG
Stay
35
with the
district are
35.
being met.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant or a representative like to address the board?
Good evening. Trevor Veskerna with TD2 Engineering and Surveying, 10836 Old Mill Road. We're the civil engineers on the project here representing the applicant Hubble Development Services. With me tonight are Matt Weller and Josh Vickery with Hubble, as well as Doug Kellner with TD2. Robert kind of explained through a lot of what I wanted to talk about. There was a few notes I kind of wrote down here. The traffic study, that was performed by Kimberly Rouse Engineering. And we are having the study updated to reflect these lower unit counts, and we'll see how that, if that changes any of their recommendations. We are showing more parking than is required by a county ordinance. That's just to give us some flexibility. We don't necessarily need to be over that, but we're providing, I think it's 2.28 stalls per unit currently. Yeah, I think that was about it. If there are any questions, myself or the applicant are happy to answer them. Thank you.
I wouldn't go anywhere. I do have a question regarding those townhomes on the west side. With RG 35 having a backyard setback of 25 feet, what are those going to have back to those single family lots?
Yeah, so right now those three plexes are, I think they're about 40 or 50 feet from the property line. So we're at least double the required setback there. And that's just to kind of give some more separation, more green space between that single family residential there.
Thank you.
Can you let everyone know the height of those three plexes? Is that a two-story?
I believe the three plexes are two-story. I think the two outside units are single-story, and I think the middle unit is a two-story unit.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I bring up these building elevations. This here, oh, not this one. That is a building elevation, a rendering of the threeplexes.
So this might be a confusing question, but why do you want to add more parking? Are you planning on bigger families being in these units?
I think it's just kind of the way the site was drawn out, just how many stalls kind of fit with the current layout we have. One thing we could look at doing is we could reduce that parking, and that would reduce some of the impervious area on site. But
I'm not value engineering this building right now. I was more, most people aren't necessarily trying to get more money into the project.
right. I just know that with multifamily projects like this, I know a lot of concern is over parking, providing adequate parking. So that's just something we kind of had looked at and thought it better to provide more than not enough there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now open the public hearing for this item. I invite you to give your input on the proposed action.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Harms. I live at 8503 South 159th Street. So we back right up to where this proposed development is going to go.
Sir, could you sign in, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So I heard some discussion about the traffic study that was done this year, but using 2022 numbers, which anybody familiar with this area has known that it's this area of 168th and Giles has grown exponentially in the last 3 years. There's been a brand new elementary school right there at the corner of Gretna Elementary. There's just recently been a pretty large apartment commercial use property developed right by Upchurch Elementary, not to mention some additional properties, apartments going in northwest corner of 168th and Giles. This area already is overburdened with traffic in the mornings. This is just going to add to the problem. There's also some additional concerns I have regarding, adding the population density to this already strained infrastructure. This is going to put a strain on the area in general. It's already a nightmare getting out of our neighborhood. This is just going to make matters much worse. Additionally, this proposed development is going to impact the adjacent Chalco Hills rec area. The proposed site backs right up to Dom's Park, which would have an impact on Chalco as well as wildlife that is in this area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Keely Taylor. We own a home at 15803 Stony Circle. I definitely agree with Mr. Harms as far as the nightmare that it already exists with getting outside of that property. I am not well equipped with like the directions and things of that nature. but our home directly looks over the proposed development site. And I guess, not to sound trivial, but the wildlife back there is abundant to where we're always looking at, packs of deers or up on that hill. And in addition to the traffic nightmare, we're already concerned about the wildlife that exists being casualties of that. And I don't know where they're going to end up with this development, but that's definitely a concern for myself, my family, and my neighbors. I have a lot of questions that I don't know have been answered. One would be, does anyone care to mention what happens to the wildlife back there in that natural reserve or reservoir? But I know in conversations with a lot of the homeowners in my neighborhood, this is not something that we're very excited about. And I definitely support economic development, real estate enhancement, all the things, but I just don't feel like this is the right area for this because of the capacity that already exists with the traffic. It takes us a good 40 minutes sometimes just to get our children to school outside of that neighborhood. And so it's really, it just already feels very compact and condensed with the traffic.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chad Snow. I live in an adjacent property to where this is being proposed. My address is 15804 Cary Circle. Going back to traffic study, from using 2022 data, Giles was closed at 168th. So I'm glad questions are being asked about that, and perhaps another traffic study could be done using current data, because it has changed quite a bit since then. As noted in the recommendation report, the current mixed-use designation allows for the current proposed development. That's what it states in the recommendation report, although you've provided something that was in opposition to that. Or you said the mixed use would not allow for the current proposal. Is that correct?
Mixed use would allow for development with multifamily residential, but mixed use does also require a second use type to be mixed in with the multifamily residential. In this case, that would most likely be commercial development. So it wouldn't just be apartments. It would be apartments and some kind of commercial development. If that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. When this land was rezoned from agricultural to mixed use, the Planning Commission members at that time stated that although they were our concerns, they took into account. They still went ahead and said, we are gonna rezone it from agricultural to mixed use, but know that when they do develop it, and they had a proposed plan at that time that the board strongly recommended that they changed, and this is different from what that was at the time. However, they said, know that mixed use, there is more oversight from the Planning Commission and more approval that's needed for whatever ends up going there. And so, although they did change it at that time, they stated they would take our concerns into account for the final proposal that would the development that would go in there. So my concern is that if we change from the current zoning of mixed use to mid and high density, that the plan may change and there may be less approval that's needed from the planning board. Again, I don't know if that's the case. However, that's what was told to us at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Then I will close the public hearing on this item. Is there any input from the commissioners?
Mr. Chair, if I might, before the commission begins their discussion, I just wanted to clarify the comprehensive plan amendment from mixed use to medium to high density residential is actually a reduction in the intensity of use that would be anticipated for the site. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
I have some questions for staff as well. This property is currently zoned ag. It has not been rezoned from ag, has it ever?
It has not been rezoned from ag. It is currently zoned agricultural district.
The future land use.
Correct.
In the comprehensive master plan 4, 5, 6 years ago.
As mixed use.
Right.
And then could you clarify, my experience with the planned development district in other jurisdictions is there's usually more control on the development?
Sure. I probably slipped my mind a little bit, but no, it's going to be very similar to what was anticipated as mixed-use development. And yes, there would have been a mixed-use development plan, and changes to that plan would go through a public review process and public hearing process. And significant changes to that plan would require additional public hearing and approval. The plan development functions exactly the same way. So if they were to come in and say, we want to add 100 units, they would have to come back before this commission and the county board. For the review of that, they would need to amend that plan development and demonstrate what they were doing, identify any exceptions or requests that they were asking for that didn't comply with the zoning regulations. This process would be gone through again.
The current 7 caveats do not include another traffic study, do they?
You're referring to the conditions of approval for the preliminary plat. None of those conditions require an additional traffic study. And I should probably clarify that the numbers were not only taken from 2022. That was the most recent set of numbers that was taken. It was from a range, I think, from 2014 to 2022 during that time.
This is a very congested area, so I do find that valid, and I know he kind of discussed possibly further traffic studies. Could that maybe be added as a caveat of approval?
The commission can add or subtract conditions as they want. I have not had a conversation with the applicant regarding traffic study. I know that they were intending to update the traffic study based off of the new unit count. There were a couple of notes that Julie can go through related to revisions that were necessary. I don't know if that equates to a new traffic study or not, but I would let Julie address that.
Maybe you could just explain what item 3 means when it says update the traffic study, so forth. Because I took that to mean that there'd be a new one delivered to the county.
And I would echo that too. I mean, there's been 1,000 residential lots, probably literally just to the west of this, 2 new schools. Mm-hmm. This is a much different picture than it was in 22.
All right, Julie Ogden, JEO Consulting Group, good evening. We have reviewed the traffic study. I gave it to our traffic engineers, and they were able to get back to me yesterday, hence why Robert doesn't have all of the comments listed out for you. And we did have a number of different things that we had seen within that. Most of the comments were minor, some general questions, but a couple things that stuck out to us was in the study at the 159th Street intersection, all the traffic numbers from the northbound or north access, so the southbound traffic, were zeros. That is definitely going to impact any traffic signal warrants as it was reviewed. So that's one of the things we're going to be asking them to update. And as noted, we had some questions on not only the traffic generation from this site, that seemed to make sense, although they were maybe using one version older of some manuals, but when our guys ran it, it really didn't change the traffic generation findings. But we really want to make sure the traffic at that 159th Street intersection is representative of today. So it might be that somebody, maybe they need to go out and do a couple peak hour counts just to see what it looks like in the morning and the afternoon. So those are a couple of the comments that we will be getting to the developer, but we wanted to visit with everybody tonight to see if there's anything else that you wanted us to look at before we send it back to them. And those types of revisions, they're stated in the staff report, and those kind of updates are always required prior to it coming back to you as a final plat as well. If that's something you want updated before you feel you can act on this, that would be something that could be discussed. But remember, this is a preliminary plat, so we're looking to get the feel for what everything is, and then we'll work out all those final details as it moves forward to final.
Thank you. Traffic Engineering 101. I do have a question, though. If we move forward and change the land use designation, that can't necessarily be undone if it's going to switch then, right?
Correct. Well, once it goes to the county board.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess just some of the reason is somewhat traffic and access related for the change. When it was mixed use, I guess we all had anticipated we could work with the NRD to gain access to 156th Street, which is owned currently by the Corps of Engineers as part of that overall project. In initial parts of this, where we were still looking at a mixed use with commercial and residential, we reached out to the NRD to see if we could get an access point maybe 250, 300 feet from the intersection, appropriate block distance, and found out that that was not possible. So without that access point, commercial or other heavier use at this location really isn't feasible, but just because we don't have the access and trying to send, and generally you don't want to send that type of traffic through a residential neighborhood. That's just not good practice on the traffic side anyway. Yeah. So hopefully that helps guide that side a little bit as well.
And then is there any projected time for general improvements to Giles Road outside of this project? Does the county have any plans for that?
Mr. Zach is shaking his head no and saying not at this moment.
Okay.
So, and the 3-lane was done not that long ago. And part of the requirements for this developer is to pay their share of that portion of those improvements from back in the day. So, I guess at this point it would remain a 3-lane road. So there is left turns into it. There is some discussion about, if needed, we may need to make what we call their middle access a right in, right out, whether that's day one, whether that's year 5, whether that's year 10, we don't know at this point. But that would probably be more of a safety type thing. And or if 159th is signalized, then it makes sense to have that be right in, right out, because you probably need the stacking for 156 left turners too, if that all makes sense, kind of as you're picturing that intersection.
I got one question. So when you do the traffic studies, was the new subdivisions taking consideration on those? The 168th Northwest, and I believe there's a new one southeast that got approved here recently. Were those traffic studies or those new units applied to that traffic study?
I don't know if, like, say, the Meridian Marketplace updates that were recently approved, I don't know if those were mentioned. I mean, that's a mile away. Yes, it will put additional traffic on Giles Road, but it may send it other directions as well. I would have to find that out from the traffic engineer that did the study, who's not with us tonight, unless the developer's engineers know if those were considered. But otherwise, everything around it, like the apartments on the north side, likely were, just because even though they may not have been in the 22 counts, and that was part of our discussion internally, our being JEO's discussion, and then with Rob as well. Even if there aren't updated counts from that traffic to the north, you can do some quick, okay, there's so many single-family lots, this many apartments. Okay, we're going to guess that this many vehicles are coming to this intersection, just like we do with new traffic that we're doing for this development too. So, but getting those through movements on Giles will be very important. Get those updated if as we all anticipate, they're priced significantly different.
Yeah, that part seems a little more predictable. It's the two new schools for me that those peak hour times and being stuck without being able to take a left. I can see that being very detrimental to the.
Yeah, so we definitely can work with the developer on getting that kind of stuff updated. It's in some of our comments anyway, but you all can obviously include that as a condition as well if you feel.
I assume that'd be a net positive for the apartment development as well, be able to take that left.
Yeah,
I mean, shaking their heads back there.
I'm like,
yep.
So you're saying you would have to, if you were to turn left, you'd have to go to 159th, right?
Maybe not day one, but someday, because yes, the mid-block intersection, the middle intersection is not at a quarter-mile point, which is your guaranteed full access. It would be at a location that would be converted someday to right in, right out, either with future improvements with Giles, or if there are some safety or functionality concerns with the 156th Street signal, and they need that distance for stacking in that turn lane, then we'd have to put a median in there to prevent people from trying to turn left in or left out, because they need that space.
And so is there currently available room? Because if you have all the traffic coming from an apartment complex and the neighborhood, is there room there for like two left-hand turn lanes as to make traffic signals shorter? Or
you're talking exiting the development?
No, on the 159th.
Exiting on 159th, trying to turn, probably not a dual left, and generally you don't see those coming out of neighborhoods. You see the single left with a signal, because that can usually get people out onto the main road quickly enough for the traffic that you would see in that.
I was just thinking peak times, the school hours and such.
Yeah, and while we design for peak hours directly related to schools are even a lot shorter, and so sometimes you can't always fix those perfectly, but if you can get your what we call our standard peak hour, that usually helps facilitate the school. Yeah, you might have to sit through one extra signal, but you're not sitting there for 20 minutes trying to turn. All right.
I'm going to go down a small rabbit hole, and I'm sorry, Nicole. I think we have, I see us commingling the two agenda items all of a sudden, and I think we need to be careful, and stop me if I'm incorrect. Agenda item number 1 is strictly a land use question. It's not a preliminary plat that turns into a final plat. And we cannot put requirements on a land use comprehensive master plan change like we can a preliminary plat. Am I correct?
Correct. So yes, and I would note for the commission that the second, while the planning director presented on the second item, we would still need to go through the public hearing and address the second agenda item as well. But yes, the first item is solely the the future land use map change. And
So with that, if we are worried about things that really affect the preliminary plat, my opinion is we should probably table the land use change until that question is answered. Because once we approve that land use change, it's changed. Correct?
No, it's in the comp plan.
It's in the comp plan right now as mixed use. But if we
permanently change
Until
until you hit the rezoning.
The comp plan change can exist solely by itself, whereas when you do a change of zone, that usually is changes at the time of the approval of the final plat. So if both of these items went forward to the county board, the comp plan, once it's changed, is changed. Now, that's not saying that you can't have a new application to change it to something else. But based on the traffic that we've just heard about and the inability to access 156, it's unlikely to go back to mixed use.
Oh, I agree. They're two separate issues.
Correct. Yeah, there are two separate agenda items. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one more question just on the coordination. I talked about the access to the NRD property being something that's wished in the future. Has there been any coordination with the NRD for sewer connectivity, for project access, for anything like that on this specific layout?
The NRD was routed the application materials, reviewed it, provided comments. Their comments were primarily related to stormwater drainage coming off of the site. They had some concerns, which the applicant was able to address for them. They'll continue to coordinate with the NRD. To my knowledge, they've not had a direct conversation about the provision of a sidewalk connection. There is, I guess, whisperings of maybe an altered entrance to the NRD property that would be in the old 156th Street corridor, but that's not guaranteed, or there's nothing concrete with that. But provision of a sidewalk connection at that location, if the NRD should go ahead and revise their entrance, would be, I think, a nice feature for the development and for the neighborhood, which is why it was anticipated as a part of this.
Thank you.
Question for staff or JEO. Again, all the discussion on traffic. And again, item number 3 in the recommended preliminary plat approval is for an updated traffic study. So again, I think whoever makes the motion here this evening, if there's changes to that are desired, that needs to be built into there. But assuming that part of the traffic study is actually looking at reduced numbers from this development from what they initially looked at, I guess walk through the process for the people that are, again, a traffic light would probably help traffic in this area. But the reality is, unless the traffic study triggers certain counts, would you just maybe discuss the likelihood of that happening or not happening for a period of time?
You mean as it relates to this development particularly? I do not see, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I might defer to Julie, but I would say that I do not see revisions to this traffic study triggering the warrants for the light at 159th, but I also don't see it being too far off. Julie can probably provide better information than I can.
Yeah, so what would happen is we'll provide our comments to the developer and, and updating those traffic counts, looking at updated Giles traffic from the north as well. They'll revise it. What my traffic engineers said, most of our comments wouldn't change something that would trigger a traffic signal today at 159th. But, this study looks at the day that the work on the site is completed. So it's 2 to 3 years out, maybe 5, depending on how quickly they build. Looks at when they've got achieved full build out, they look at that. The signal is not currently warranted with the information we have in here at that time. When they looked at 20 years out, it was a lot closer, but it still hadn't hit it. But that's where I think having those movements from the north will help, because I think we need those. And so what I'm going to tell you is probably somewhere in the 5 to 20 years, the signal should be warranted. But that is something that the county can monitor, just like they monitor a number of other intersections, kind of trying to keep an eye on it, see when the delay is really what you're looking at there, and where it can help. There are some other warrants that also trigger, but usually it's the traffic numbers on not only the main, but the side streets and how long you have to sit there to try to find a gap to turn that hit. So there's your wishy-washy engineering 5 to 20 year answer.
I'm glad you answered that, because again, the expectation for anybody in the crowd this evening that, hey, the automatic fix on this seems to be let's put a traffic light in. It may still not get triggered for quite a period of time based on what the county needs to generate the signal.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other discussion from the commissioners? Then I'll ask for a motion on this item.
Question for Nicole. So in the current staff recommendation, I guess, let me back up. We're actually we're on our first application here. My question will be to the second application. Well, Mr. Brethnock, go ahead.
I've asked for a motion on item 1 only. We have to go through the process again for item 2, even though our county planner has addressed it already, but protocol says we'll deal with that downstream here. So I'm asking for a motion on item 1 only.
There's no discussion. Mr. Chair, I'd make a recommendation for approval of the proposed amendment to the Sarpy County Comprehensive Plan as shown herein on the proposed future and land use map, attachment number 2, for the general area located southwest of the intersection of 156th Street and Giles Road. Proposed amendment is consistent and compatible with the surrounding area with the overall comprehensive plan, goals, and objectives.
I'll second.
Who was that?
Doug.
Please vote. Nine yeas, 1 absent, Dembinski, motion carries.
Okay, item number 2 for public hearing and recommendation is the rezoning from AG Agricultural Farm District to RG 35 PD General Residential District, 3,500 square feet, and Planned Development District, and a preliminary plat of a subdivision to be known as lots 1 through 4, the Riva at Chalco, being platted at the northeast corner of section 22 T14N R11 east of the 6th Post Meridian, Sarpy County, Nebraska, except that portion conveyed to the United States of America in Deed Book 149 at page 1607, and except that portion conveyed to Papio, Missouri River Natural Resources District in instruction number 90-14067, and accept that portion conveyed to Boyer Young Equities 5 LLC in the instruction number 2004-27640, and accept that portion taken or used for roads generally located southwest of 156th Street and Giles Road, applicant Hubble Development Services. So we've already discussed this in part from our planner already. So what I'd like to do is open the floor again. If anybody has additional input onto this item, which is related to item number 1.
Brandon Harms, once again, 8503 South 159th Street. one final thing, I'll keep this short. When we bought our house, probably about 13 years ago, we obviously knew that something was going to be built behind our house. We're not against that. I mean, we're realistic. I think, putting in four three-story apartment complexes is a little much. Me personally, I would like to see this potentially be reduced to single-family homes or moderate duplexes. I think that would alleviate a lot of the concerns that I have, and I don't want to speak for my neighbors, but I think it would definitely have less of an impact on traffic in the area, to bring up the traffic discussion again. What's going in by Upchurch Elementary, big apartment complexes. It's clearly going to have a negative impact on traffic in the area. So if something has to go back there, I'd like to see a much scaled down version of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christina Hoy. I'm a property owner along with my husband at 15802 Stony Circle. We own the property that's a single-family home in the corner of this development, so it's adjacent to two sides of our yard. I have never been to a meeting like this. My expertise certainly lies elsewhere, but I'm intrigued. First of all, how, and you don't have to answer these questions now, but please just note them. How was the information, like the traffic study, distributed to property owners in our neighborhood? And even this meeting was bumped to this month because many of us were not notified properly. And so I don't know if that information was distributed. I certainly didn't receive it in order to prepare for this. I hear a lot of the conversation about the traffic and specific to the intersection at 159th Street, but I think it's important to note, as we mentioned, the entire area is congested and saturated, and so it's not just that intersection. It's not just the in and out off of Giles. It's every road in that neighborhood and every main two-lane road, 156th, 168th, now 180th. Getting out, I drive to Nebraska Medicine every day. Getting out of the neighborhood is one issue, but then getting to wherever else you're going. Getting children to Anderson Middle School, to Millard South, to Upchurch. We now go to Millard West. We have a child at Gretna East. Getting anywhere it's so saturated and congested. So it's not just the intersections along Giles. So I think it's just important to note that. And then I'm also just curious, this medium high density, lots of people and homes in a specific area in the county. Is there a percentage? Like, how much is too much of that? We have one going in just on the other side of this neighborhood. And most of these will be families, multiple people. So again, just further saturating the entire area. I am also a proponent of development and growth. I think it's great. I'm not actually going to live here in the next year. So this won't directly impact me, but I think it's difficult to live in this area right now just because of the congestion and getting in and out. So, and like, there's so many everywhere. So I just didn't know, are these schools at capacity? Do we have enough medium high density?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Snow, and I also live in a property that's adjacent, 15804 Cary Circle. And I also wanted to, I know we've talked a lot about traffic, but I am a stay-at-home mom, and I do drive in and out of that neighborhood all of the time. I also am going to 2 different schools, and in the next year I'll be driving my kids to 3 different schools, all of which will require me to turn left. And currently it is impossible to turn left out of my neighborhood on 159th Street. You can't do it. It takes a long time to turn right. Right now, I have to drive in through the neighborhood all the way up to 168th, back past the empty area where the new apartments will be, to take a right to go up into the neighborhood. I've started looking at Google Maps every morning to find the route that has the least amount of traffic, and just about every day it's at least 20 minutes for what should be a 9-minute drive. Also, Upchurch and Upchurch Elementary and Russell Middle School are now STEM schools, which is great for the area, but that does also bring other students in. I believe the intent with that was to bring up numbers within the schools, and I know currently Upchurch has some wait lists going. So one of my concerns would be, as we get more people into those programs, what will that do to the numbers of the kids in the classrooms at the school and the student-teacher ratio? There are already some elementary schools being built. We've talked about that already. I don't know where else we would put another one, but I just wanted to add those little bits of information in there as well as you're considering everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board?
Hi, Trevor Veskerner with TD2 Engineering Surveying, 10836 Old Mill Road. Just here to answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public portion for this item. Is there any input from the board?
I have a question for the gentleman from TD2. So one of the specific waivers you guys are requesting is the change in square footage to drop to 3,000 from 3,500.
Yes.
If we would leave it at 3,500, how many units do you lose? How many parking spots do you lose?
Let me look at that.
Math in public.
So we're 20.7 acres. Let me pull out my calculator here.
43,560.
Divided by 3,500. So we'd be at 258 units at that 3,500 square feet mark, and we're at proposing 299 right now.
So roughly one of the big buildings, approximately.
Right.
Well, they could go back and go multi-story on the townhome style.
And now because the RD35 PD limits their height, and they may not have enough room to get another story on top. I don't know what the numbers are, but that's a possibility. But
if they go to what are you proposing, 4-story here?
I don't.
Well, wouldn't that change?
How big is the tallest
building? Change
building?
fire sprinkler systems, everything.
I believe the max building height in the RG35 and that we're proposing is 45 feet. Yeah.
So you're already at the max height.
I think that the apartment building at 3 stories with a pitched roof is probably close to that 40, 45 feet, I would think. But yeah, the intent would be for the townhome styles. Those would all be 1 or 2 story units there.
Yeah, it's the multi, not the right word, but the larger, more condensed units that.
Can you just confirm the 11 plexes? So I get the concern about the big buildings over top of surrounding the residential area. We looked at a rendering of the 3 plexes being residential scale, we'll call it, looking houses. Are the 11 plexes, is that 3-story, or is it 2 in a garage under, or?
I think, yeah, if you could pull up the the elevation view. I think they're 2-story. They do not have garages.
If you bring up the,
They did.
so let's take a look here. Sorry. This is a rendering of the 9-plex. One of the things we noted is that these don't include the 11-plex, but the 9-plex is representative of what the 11-plex is supposed to look like. And then that would be the 45s.
So everything to the north and the east of the 2 cul-de-sacs in the neighborhood are 2-story pitch roof.
And I should note
similar
that,
height.
you know, I said at the beginning of the evening that the plan development was intended to offset these exceptions, or the design of the site is supposed to mitigate impacts. And I think you'll see in this instance, that's what the applicant attempted to do. They've got the residential scale 2-story buildings located closest to the single-family residential neighborhood.
Okay.
The taller 45 plexes are located on Giles, located to the east away from the site. You'll also notice they put the 2-story buildings adjacent to the NRD property as well. So they are trying to mitigate the impact of those larger buildings, setting them back away from the single-family residential neighborhood.
Just one thing to add on those multiplex, there may be garages that are either under or attached or of some kind, but right now they're, as shown, no garages for those.
Does this PUD lock in the unit type as well?
Yes. Yes.
Just for
the
point of
unit
clarification.
type, the number of units, largely the site layout. Like if they were to transpose an 11-plex and a 9-plex, something like that, that might be something that we would be okay with. But like if the 45s were to move to the neighborhood or closer to the neighborhood, that would be something that would require coming back to the Planning Commission.
Doug Kellner with TD2 10836 Old Mill Road here on behalf of the applicant also. Just one thing, the applicant would like the option to add garages to those plexes also. That shouldn't be a big amendment to the mixed use, would it, if they built them in? It would reduce some parking exterior and get some impervious coverage gone, but just the ability to add parking garages.
I hesitate to speak on behalf of the commission as to like if they want to see revised building elevations that would add those garages. I will say by the time when this goes to the county board, that the design of those buildings would need to be locked in fairly firmly. Yes.
Is there any other input from the board? Then I'll ask for a motion on item number 2.
I guess just to address a couple comments. We heard, Ms. Hoy, you talked about, again, the traffic is getting worse everywhere. One of the things that modern planning is doing more and more of is more density instead of less. And part of that, it's twofold. One is because of the price of housing, workforce housing, affordable housing we keep hearing about. The only way you get that cheaper is if you build denser units instead of single lots. So we see sometimes we get single residential lots that have been platted come back and they ask for townhome lots instead, because again, that's one of the only ways you can get higher density and cheaper construction. So again, these kind of developments, you are seeing more and more of them because again, the affordability of housing and single family residential keeps going up and more people are opting to live into higher density areas. So not unusual what we're seeing. And then I guess for Mr. Harms, again, I think they have been intentional in terms of having the 2-story triplexes immediately what I think is behind your home there. There's other locations we've had where you end up with a 3 or 4 story apartment building right next to single family, and that's not ideal. I think they've been very intentional on the design, trying to make it flow. That probably doesn't make you feel any better here this evening, but it is intentional how they're setting this up to better flow into the neighborhood that's there. So with that, if there's no further discussion,
Again, I'll ask for a motion on item number 2.
Do we want to update condition number 3 to include updated traffic counts?
I happen to have several things written out on my piece of paper.
Okay. I'll let you take it.
How about it, Tom?
All right, let's start with rezoning. I would recommend approval of the rezoning from AG District to RG 35 PD District on the subdivision to be known as lots 1 through 4, the Riva at Chalco, subject to the comments and attachments in the Planning Department recommendation report.
Second.
Please vote.
I do not have a vote box pop up, or did not have a vote box pop up.
You didn't?
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
It's hiding.
9 yeas, 1 absent, Dembinski, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, with regard to the preliminary plat and waiver, I would recommend approval of the preliminary plat of the subdivision known as lots 1 through 4, the Riva at Chalco, Sarpy County, Nebraska, along with the waiver of the lot frontage requirements for lot 3, but subject to the comments and attachments in the Planning Department recommendation report and the following specific conditions. 1, revise the plans to show a right-in, right-out access provided on Giles Road, including construction and design details of the proposed right turn lane. Updated plans shall be submitted prior to hearing at County Board. 2, provide details for the construction and design of the internal road system in compliance with the Sarpy County design criteria. 3, update the traffic study to reflect the following. A, the accurate unit count in the proposed development. B, all current traffic counts in the surrounding area from the prior numbers used, whether from 2022 or otherwise. And C, address all other provided comments. And then provide all improvements identified in the final traffic study to this site with the preliminary plat. 4, provide the preliminary drainage report for review and address all returned comments. 5, revise plans to provide an access path and easement between the internal circulation road and the stormwater basin on the southern end of Lot 3. Updated plans shall be submitted prior to hearing at the County Board. 6, address comments provided by the other departments and agencies, which will be forwarded to the applicant as they are received. And 7, address any other comments sent separately by planning staff and any attachments in the Planning Department recommendation report, which are not noted above.
I will second, but I have an amendment to that motion. You ready, Nicole?
Yeah.
Make sure I do this right. I would like to make a motion to amend that motion to include the removal of the variant from 3,500 square feet per unit to 3,000 square feet per unit. So everything stands as presented except the waiver to go from 3,500 feet per square foot or 3,500 square feet per unit to 3,000 square foot per unit is removed. So the developer will have to stay at 3,500 square feet per unit.
Okay.
So that's my amended motion,
Okay.
mainly because I want to force the discussion.
Okay. So at this point in time, there are 2 options here. If the if Mr. Ackley agrees with the amendment, then you would vote on the amended motion. If Mr. Ackley is silent at this time, you would need a second, and there'd be 2 votes. One for whether or not the amendment stands, and then the second vote would either be on the amended motion or the original motion. Mr. Ackley.
We're going to test Robert's rules tonight. I'm going to disagree with the the proposed amendment to the original amendment, so it'll have to stand on its own.
And I would say that, just to clarify, Robert's rules don't apply.
Because we have our own.
But at this point, we have the original motion with Mr. Ackley. We have a motion to amend Mr. Ackley's motion. Is there a second? Sorry, that's your line. Is there a second, Mr.?
I just have a question. Can I ask a question? Is that allowed, or can we just vote?
No, you can ask.
I mean, that's substantive to the developer, whether the plat would go through or not. Is that too big of a decision to make at this point without discussion with the applicant?
That's why I did this, because if somebody seconds the motion, we have that discussion. And then they can be asked questions.
So we wouldn't go one into the next.
Don't we need to reset then and stop all motions and open the floor again?
You do not have to open the floor to the public meeting. You can certainly ask the applicant questions without doing that. I think once okay. So
without a second.
Yeah, I would say that without a second to the motion to amend,
it dies. It would die, and we're back to the original motion if nobody seconds my amendment.
Correct.
Yes. So, is there a second to? And I'll just use Doug.
Yeah, Doug's amendment.
You're going to second.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I feel like an auctioneer here.
Yeah. We're learning process today.
So at this point, our only discussion is the change in 3,500 to 3,000 at the moment.
But I think Tom can reject.
This is a standalone.
We're going to do that standalone then?
Standalone.
Okay.
So
don't we need to vote then first on?
Oh, first you got to vote.
First you got to vote on mine.
Okay.
So
the discussion now is on my amendment and my amendment only.
Okay.
So I'd like to ask the developer's representative to come up and ask them, how does that affect your development? Is your developer willing to reduce that development by 40 some odd units to reduce the impacts on traffic and all of the above and stick within the original RG 35 for units square footage size?
Good evening, Matt Weller with Hubble Realty, 9719 Giles Road. Represent Hubble Realty on the development team. Regarding the reduction, we approached this with city staff, who's been great to work with, as kind of a more palatable path to you as a group and to the neighbors. We would like to go much higher density, 14 units an acre, which is where we're currently at. I think it was mentioned is equivalent to a townhome development. We're doing 18, 24, 30 units an acre other sites. So we took that into account to, try to blend the single family into triplex townhomes, 2-story townhomes, really separating the taller apartment buildings from everybody so that we could move through this at a more reasonable pace. So to reduce density further makes it not palatable for us. We'd prefer to go back to commercial with high density at that point. That's kind of the answer, I suppose.
Okay, thank you.
Question for staff: if Mr. Whitfield's motion were to be approved, is there any way the preliminary plat could go forward? Because at that point, we have a preliminary plat that does not reflect what the new densities would be.
The preliminary plat could go forward with the rezoning because the preliminary plat does not lock down any design of the site. The site would still be in a planned development. It would just need to meet the 3,500 foot per unit regulator.
Okay, so we have Doug's motion. We have a second. At this stage, we need to go take it to a vote.
And just for the record, can you restate the motion? Yeah, it's your motion to amend.
So my motion to amend was to remove the PD comments of decreasing the minimum area per unit from 3,500 to 3,000 square feet per unit.
Okay. And so just so the commission is clear, that is what you're voting on, whether or not to allow the amendment to the original motion.
Another question in this, sorry. With the PUD, it specifies unit count, location, height, everything else. Could they come back? Is there anything in the PUD that would specify they couldn't put the 45 plex if as long as it meets height and setback adjacent to this single family residential?
If the amended motion were to be approved, to essentially what you would be requesting is a revised set of plans that demonstrated that they meet the 3,500 square foot per unit. That's what you would want to see. That's what would be required before we would forward that request to county board for final consideration. If the applicant were to choose to meet those conditions, they could do so in whatever design they found suited them best. So if they would not eliminate the 45 units, or, I mean, logically they would get rid of one of those buildings, but they could structure those allotted units in any way that they wanted to. Does that answer your question?
That was just my point, yeah.
Or they could withdraw their application and file a new application for a mixed-use development with a gas station and various other things on the north end of the development and housing on the south.
Exactly. Which might end up in a higher density.
I guess from my perspective, Mr. Whitfield, I appreciate the goal that maybe trying to reduce by 41 units by my count. I think the answer from Trevor when you asked the question, how many would it be if it was stayed at the 3,500 square feet per unit, would be 258 units. They're proposing 299, so that's an increase of 41 units. In exchange for that, they're also adding more green space. They're putting in taller buildings instead of more buildings. Again, that 41 for additional traffic in this location that's already so bad with traffic, unless or until we get some traffic lights in there, those 41 units aren't going to make a difference from my perspective. But so I'm not sure if your goal was exactly that or to generate discussion.
So, I think it's a good discussion to have. So,
do you want to move forward with the?
I think we have to.
Okay.
I'm not since it's been seconded. I can't withdraw my motion, can I? So, nor do I want to. So,
okay, well then, move it.
So now we need to vote.
So yes, so now there's
Now we
a
have to
vote.
vote.
But it'll be a
Correct.
voice vote because, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It is in the system. Just do a voice vote on the amended motion.
freak them out.
Okay.
Does anyone have questions on what you're voting on?
We're just voting on the amendment.
The amendment only.
Correct. Only the amendment.
Okay, so the motion was made by Whitfield to amend the motion, seconded by Mattia. We'll do a voice vote. Ackley,
No.
Brannock,
No.
Mattia,
Yes.
Van Wielden,
No.
Whitfield,
No.
Huddleston,
No.
Dembinski,
Absent.
yeah, Weiss,
No.
Kyer-Lieber,
No.
Huck,
No.
Motion fails. Okay. Motion fails.
And what is the count for the record?
Okay. Okay, hang on. 1 yay, 8 nay, 1 absent, Dembinski. Motion fails.
Now we're back to the original motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm going, because there's been such a length here, and I know it was a lengthy motion and you had notes, I am going to impose on you again, Tom, to read it out. Sorry.
Why would you impose that upon me, Mr. Brethnock? Questions for the attorney staff. Can I reference everything as written from 1 through 7 with the exception of what I'm revising in number 3?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion on the table at this time is approval of a preliminary plat and waiver of a subdivision to be known as lots 1 through 4, the Riva Chalco in Sarpy County, Nebraska, along with the waiver of a lot frontage requirements for lot 3, subject to the comments and attachments in the Planning Department recommendation report, and the conditions listed as 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the staff report. With regard to item number 3 in the staff report, that is being updated to state, update the traffic study to reflect A, the accurate unit count in the proposed development, B, all current traffic counts and surrounding area from the prior numbers used in 2022 or otherwise, and C, to address all other provided comments. And then once that traffic study is done, provide all those improvements identified in that final traffic study.
Second.
Who was that?
Just to be clear, you were the second for previous, right?
Yeah, I was just clarifying for Mr. Brethnock to refresh the memories on what the motion.
You were the previous second.
No, we didn't get to that.
I was.
No, that was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we never got there.
Okay.
Sorry. I got lost.
Please vote. Nine yeas, 1 absent, Dembinski. Motion carries.
Okay, that concludes the public portion of our meeting tonight. Do the commissioners have any comments or reports? Does the planning department have any comments or reports? Okay, how are we looking for next month?
Got 2 so far.
Got 2, okay, so kind of figure on a meeting next month. So our next meeting is scheduled for November 18th, 2025. Are there any other items of business for the board?
For the people who participated this evening, when is this going to Sarpy County Board? So they have a date? Or it's to be determined based on changes with the traffic study?
Yes, it'll be determined. The updates to the traffic study could take some time, so I don't have a firm time.
Will notice go out then, since there is no proposed date for them to be aware of?
Yes, it will be re-advertised, re-notified.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Well, I will then declare this meeting adjourned. I'll see you all.